What have you done?
The Empire opened fire on the city. We weren't gonna leave you behind.
Kamino Lost, the end to an era. This episode was an emotional roller coaster from start to finish with so much to dive into. So let's get into it with a review, breakdown, Easter eggs, observations, and revelations from this week's episode, part 2 of the finale, Kamino Lost. Right at the beginning, we are thrown into it. Hunter is separated from Omega and Crosshair, and my immediate thought while watching this was that if someone doesn't die right now, it's definitely going to happen later. As we know, this doesn't happen, but it definitely kept me on my toes the whole episode. Meanwhile, back on Rampart's cruiser, the clone troopers manning the weapons seem to be completely unfazed at following this order to destroy their former home. But this clone who gives a status report to Rampart definitely sounds conflicted.
The cities have been destroyed, sir. All Kaminoan facilities have collapsed.
Again, this shows more evidence that not all clones are blind soldiers programmed to follow orders, but people with free will, like Hauser and some of the troops in his squad. I'm curious to see if this will continue to be a theme throughout Season 2. AZ is the first to wake up as the water is pouring into the room. Omega doesn't hesitate to save Crosshair from drowning, with AZ playing the role of Captain Obvious.
You survived the aerial bombardment, but are now moments away from drowning.
Once out of the room, we get the first dialogue between Hunter and Crosshair this episode, and they are still frustrated with each other. Omega and Wrecker pause to look at the cloning tanks, the birthplace of the clones, being submerged in water, and clearly this destruction is difficult for them to witness. As they are escaping, Omega is the only one who waits behind to make sure Crosshair is following them. I think her continued compassion for Crosshair will definitely come into play in the next season, since I don't think the Batch will be able to change his mind, but Omega might. The Batch make it to their old barracks, and we see the same unknown aquatic creatures from last episode swimming past the window. This was our first foreshadowing that there would be something bigger coming later.
There's always a bigger fish.
Wrecker points out their board, which we first saw in the opening episode, the scratches on the wall indicating how many missions they've completed as a squad. This is another painful reminder of what they used to be, something that just like Kamino is being lost right before their eyes, with nothing they can do to stop it. They start to escape through the underwater tunnel. We heard a lot about Crosshair's feelings in the last episode, but here Wrecker expresses his own disappointment in Crosshair, that he never tried to come back to them.
We still would have taken you.
This, along with Tech's comments about Crosshair's unyielding nature, shows that it's not just Hunter that disagrees with Crosshair, but that there is a clear divide among all the members. A huge creature starts to attack the underwater tunnel, reminiscent of the creatures in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, when Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Jar Jar are traveling through the planet Core on Naboo. Both the little creatures and the big one are completely new to the Star Wars compendium. It's always fun to see new creatures introduced. They narrowly escape the creature with the help of AZ and arrive back on Nala Se's secret lab. I love how Tech so matter-of-factly explains Omega's comment from last episode saying she was there when the Bad Batch was created.
Omega was created before us. Technically, she is older than we are.
I'm curious to know if there is any significance to this, since we don't know how old Omega really is.
Adolescent human female. Origins uncertain.
Omega could be a lot older than we think. Who knows? Maybe she was created to be that age and never grow any older. I wouldn't put it past these Kaminoans to experiment with anything. Trapped in Nala Se's lab, the tension between Crosshair and the Batch continues to heat up. Crosshair knows that the Empire will soon rule the entire galaxy, and he wants to be a part of it. He says that Hunter made the wrong choice.
Don't fool yourself. All you'll ever be to them is a number.
I honestly thought that Rampart destroying the city and leaving Crosshair for dead might have turned him back to his brothers, but he was very quick to defend the Empire's actions, saying that they did what needed to be done. We see that Crosshair's primary motivation is self-preservation, to be on the winning side. Crosshair is again rubbing his head. He did this in the last episode too, and I wonder if this is more than just feeling regret. Perhaps he is still battling the influence of a partially damaged chip. He seems to be operating without its influence, but it's hard to know for sure. Like Omega, I wanted to believe that it was just the inhibitor chip controlling Crosshair, but, like Tech said, part of this is just Crosshair's nature. Does this still make Crosshair a villain, or is it more complicated than that? Would love to know your thoughts in this in the comments below. The Batch get into the medical capsules to make it to the surface, while AZ accesses his reserve power to help guide them safely. This is a bittersweet full-circle moment since it was in these capsules they were first created, and now they are leaving Topoka City for the last time in those same capsules. On their way through the debris field, AZ runs out of power. Omega can't bear to let AZ go and dives after him.
I've got you. I won't let go.
In this moment, as much as I like AZ, I was like, Omega, just leave him, don't be so dumb. However, I do think her unwavering devotion for those she cares about, even droids, definitely echoes Anakin's character traits. Even though I thought Crosshair would be the first person to scorn Omega for her reckless feelings, I think it was this act that actually prompted him to save her. This could have been just to settle the debt of Omega rescuing him earlier, but I believe it was more than that. I imagine for Crosshair, this was the kind of loyalty that he had always wanted from Hunter, and seeing this act of selflessness from Omega made him feel something. After making it back to the Marauder, Omega and the Batch stare out at the burning wreckage of Tipoca City. Even though Omega expressed that she never wanted to go back to Kamino, it makes sense why she would have mixed feelings about its destruction. Regardless of some of her negative feelings, it was still her home. Hunter offers Crosshair a last chance to join them.
We want different things, Crosshair. That doesn't mean that we have to be enemies.
But he refuses. The Batch leave Crosshair on the platform with Omega's parting words.
You're still their brother, Crosshair. You're my brother too.
I feel like Omega planted a seed with Crosshair that may cause him to turn back to his brothers in the next season, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, I thought that this would be the end, but wait, there's more. The show gives us a last interesting tidbit. On the planet Wayland, Nala Se is transported to meet an Imperial medical officer in the Wayland facility on Mount Tantus. This is yet another thing from Legends that this season has now made canon. This facility first appeared in the Legends novel by Timothy Zahn, Heir to the Empire. The Imperial medical officer says that the Empire has big things planned for Nala Se. Now, this scene, small as it was, connects some important dots. To start, the patch worn by the medical officer is the same one as the Kaminoans, and it is just like the one worn by Dr. Pershing in The Mandalorian. They also have the same outfit.
Coincidence? I think not!
Palpatine was obviously very interested in cloning, which explains the acquisition of Nala Se and the cloning equipment. We know from The Rise of Skywalker that Palpatine created a son, or unaltered clone of himself, just like Jango did with Boba. After Palpatine died in Return of the Jedi and the Empire fell into ruin, the cloning projects were mostly abandoned, except for the ones kept alive by Imperial supporters like the Client in The Mandalorian. It is likely that whatever resulted from this project, Palpatine was able to use to return in The Rise of Skywalker. I really appreciate that the creators of this show are at least trying to lend a little more explanation to the chaotic and muddled plot lines of the sequel trilogy. And then, it was over. Overall, it was a great finale, though this episode did feel way too short and just made me desperate for more. I'm honestly surprised that no one, not even AZ, was lost during this episode, though having some droid comedic relief in the next season will be fun. As much as I wouldn't want it, I suppose there is certainly time for a tragic ending in the next season. I don't see any realistic ending for these characters than for them all to die in a Rogue One type situation, unless they all peacefully retire to some unknown part of the galaxy like Cut. But unfortunately, the latter does seem unlikely. Still no big Omega reveal, no theories like her being Force-sensitive coming to light. It's still not outside the realms of possibility, but at this point it may be coming out of left field. We still don't know why Omega is so important to Lama Su and Nala Se, and why they wanted to keep her from the Empire. If she is part Jango clone, perhaps she's a mixture of some other powerful person, and they are experimenting to create an even more powerful line of Omega clones. There is certainly something more to Omega, and only time will reveal what makes her so special. The ending, with seeing Kamino destroyed and Crosshair being left alone on the platform, definitely made me emotional. Kamino Lost was the title of this episode, but I feel like a lot more was lost than just Tipoca City. The Batch lost a brother, and Crosshair lost his family. I'm really rooting for Crosshair to be reunited with his brothers in Season 2, and I think Omega might be the link that will bring him back. I absolutely loved this season and the finale, and Season 2 could not come quickly enough. But what did you think of this episode, and what are you excited for Season 2? And if you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. My wife and I are just a couple of simple Star Wars fans trying to make our way in the universe. It would mean the world to us if you liked this video and considered subscribing to our channel to see more Star Wars content. But until next time, hope to catch you on the next video, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.